detectives, and welcome to my video for April 2018. I've had a really exciting month. First of all, my American edition of Jolly Foul Play is finally out. I'm so proud of it. It looks absolutely beautiful. I love that it's a hardcover in America. It is illustrated by Elizabeth Baddeley and it's out from Simon & Schuster now if you want to go and grab your copy. This month I've been travelling all over England visiting as many of you as I can. Now, I don't have that many events next month, but the good news is that I already have started to plan my summer events this year, and I'm going to be travelling very far afield to meet you. First of all, I'm going to be at the Listowel Writers' Week on the 31st of May and the 1st of June. The 31st of May is my solo event, and the 1st of June I'm on a panel with Helena Duggan and Alex Barkley. And both those events I'm going to be talking about murder mystery and how you can plot your own. Those events are both ticketed, you need to book a ticket, and they're mostly for schools, although you can definitely go with your family or your friends if you want to. After that, I'm going to be at Cork Waterstones on the 2nd of June at 2 p.m. and I'm going to be doing a reading, I'm going to be answering your questions, I'm going to be talking murder mysteries again, and then I'm going to be signing all of your books. And that is a totally free event that anyone can come to. So those are my events in Ireland, and then in the middle of the month I'm going to be going all the way to Italy to the Mare dei Libri Festival. Tickets aren't available for that yet, but they will be very soon, and I am so excited to be talking about my book Il Mistero del Guggenheim with Italian fans, and I'm sure I'll be mentioning some of my Miss Detective books as well. So I've got a really full and exciting May and June coming up. I can't wait. But now I'm going to finish this month by telling you some of my favourite books that I have been reading recently. The first book I've chosen this month is Piglet by Clementine Beauvais. Now, you may know Clementine Beauvais from some of the other books she has written. She is the author of a series of books called Sleuth on Skates, which is a detective series set in Cambridge that I absolutely love. Clementine is an incredibly wonderful and clever person, and the books she writes are absolutely fantastic. In fact, she is so clever that she is bilingual. She is originally French, she lives in England, and she can speak fluently in English and French. Her books are translated into both English and French, and this is a book that she first wrote in French and then she translated it herself into English, which is absolutely amazing, and I am totally in awe. Piglet is about three girls, Mireille, Hakima, and Astrid. And these girls are, at the very beginning of the book, voted as the ugliest three girls in their school. They win the Little Pig Award. And at first they're quite upset, even though Mireille, who is the narrator, pretends she's not upset. It's pretty awful to hear that everybody hates you and thinks you're ugly. And the girls are really sad. But then they decide to band together and see what they can do to fight this prejudice, to fight back and sort of make a name for themselves as something a bit more than just three little pigs. So what they decide to do is get three bikes and cycle them all the way from their town, Bourg-en-Bresse, to Paris. And this book is really all about their journey to Paris, what happens along the way, and them learning more confidence, them learning the power of friendship, and them having a lot of fun. It's an incredibly funny book. Clementine is such a funny writer. I laughed all the way through this. I also thought it had a really nice, important message about how stupid it is for people to be judged on their appearance. I think you'll enjoy this book if you're 12 plus, if you enjoy contemporary stories, funny stories, stories about friendship and people working together, and also if you love stories about food. There are so many delicious food descriptions in this book. It made me hungry to read it. The next book I've picked is another YA young adult contemporary book, but a very different kind. This is Love, Hate and Other Filters by Samira Ahmed. Love, Hate and Other Filters is the story of Maya, who is a Muslim American being raised in a small town in Illinois. Maya just wants all the things that most teens want. She really wants the boy she's in love with to notice her. She wants her parents to listen to her, and she really wants to follow her dreams. She wants to go and be a filmmaker. She wants to go study in New York. And that is how the book begins, and the first part of the book is really all about her falling in and out of love with different boys, really trying to make this really attractive boy that she likes, Phil, notice her, and getting really excited when he seems to be becoming a bit more interested in her. But then about halfway through this book, something happens that is really scary, that is really upsetting, that suddenly turns Maya's world upside down. And so the rest of the book becomes about how Maya deals with falling in love and this love story that's happening to her, but also how she deals with these really frightening, upsetting events that have really scared her parents and have scared herself. I love books about romance, and if this was just a book about romance, I would have really enjoyed it. But I think the way that Samira kind of weaves in different themes about citizenship and who gets to be American and what it means when people start hating each other and why that happens is really, really interesting. And I thought it was a very deep, very important novel, as well as being a whole lot of fun to read. I think different people will get a lot of different things out of this book. I would say this is for about 12, 13 plus. There are some things in it that are frightening. There is a terrorist attack that happens. So if you are someone who is really nervous and anxious, this might be a slightly scary book to read for you. But I would really encourage you to do it because it is a very thoughtful, very interesting book, incredibly well told, and a story that I think is important as well as being a lot of fun. Next is a book that is young adult, but I would say it's also for adults, and it's very different from the other two because it is a fantasy novel, and it is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Holly writes a lot of books about fairies, but these are not the fairies of Disney movies. These are the fairies of fairy tales, scary fairies, the fairies who will drag you away under the hail, who make you dance for 7 years, who'll steal your life, who'll steal your children and never give them back. Those are the kind of fairies that she's interested in, so all of her books have a really creepy, scary undertone. I love the fantasy world she creates. I love her visions of what fairyland is, and every time a new Holly Black book comes out, I run to the store and buy it. This is a book about a girl called Jude who, when she's a child, is kidnapped with her 2 sisters and whisked off to fairyland, where she has to learn to fend for herself as one of the only humans in the terribly dangerous court of fairy. Jude thinks she's succeeding. She thinks she's tough enough to survive in the land of fairy. But what she doesn't realise is that all of her trials so far are just the beginning of the dangerous adventures that are happening to her, because all is not well in the land of fairy. There is a plot against the royal family, and Jude is caught up in it and forced to become a really important player in it. This is a really exciting, really dangerous book. It's got romance in it. It's got loads and loads of adventure and peril. I would say that it is for about 14 plus, just because it is so violent. But it's a really exciting, really engrossing read. You will be whisked off to fairyland just like Jude by this book, and you will not want to come back. It's the beginning of a new series, and I cannot wait for the next book already. Next, I've picked another adult book, and this is a book that I think you will enjoy if you love my Murder Most Unladylike mysteries and you're getting a bit older and you wish you could read a book with characters a bit like Daisy Wells in them. And that book is Dear Mrs. Bird. Dear Mrs. Bird is set at the beginning of World War II during the Blitz, when London was being bombed a lot by the Germans. And it's about a girl called Emmy. Emmy gets a job, and she thinks the job she's got is an important war reporter, but unfortunately that's not the job she has. She's really been given the job of being the assistant to a woman called Mrs. Bird, who answers the advice column in a woman's magazine. Now, Mrs. Bird is not a very nice person. She's really mean, and she hates answering the advice column because she thinks that all the women who write in are common and their problems are rude and awful. And Emmy starts realising that actually the poor women do really need to be helped, and she starts sneakily writing back to all of the women who write to Mrs. Bird, pretending to be Mrs. Bird so she can give them good advice. Emmy really does remind me of a more grown-up version of Daisy. She's really positive. She never gives up. She's always trying to put on a brave face and have a stiff upper lip. But inside, she is really nervous because she is in London at a point when London is really, really dangerous. The bombs keep falling every night, and Emmy is really scared about what might happen to her and the people she loves. This book, I think, really stands out from other books about World War II. It is so funny, it's so full of heart, it's so light, but it really paints a frightening and quite bleak vision of what it was like to be in London in the 1940s, how frightening it was to go to bed every night and not know if the air raid sirens were going to go and not know if your house were going to be hit by a bomb. That is a scary thing to think about, and this book made me think about it in a way I hadn't ever really done before. So I'm really grateful that this book has been written. I think it's a really good window on a part of our history that we think we know very well, but maybe we sometimes don't really consider properly. I know you'll like this book. If you like historical novels, if you're interested in World War II, if you like books with funny, engaging heroines, if you like reading about other people's problems and trying to solve them yourself. I would say, again, this is for about 14 plus, just because there are some very scary bits in it. And finally, I always end my recommendations by picking one classic book, one book that I read when I was younger that I think you might enjoy too, and this month it is After the Funeral by Agatha Christie. As you know, Agatha Christie is my very favourite murder mystery writer. I think she's amazing, and one of my favourite things about her is how she fills so many of her books with absolutely incredible twists that you don't see coming and you can't believe she did, but they always also make total sense. And without spoiling this book at all, I will just say that I think this book contains one of her cleverest twists. After the Funeral starts after the funeral of Richard Abernathy, and his family are all gathering at his big house to hear the reading of his will, to find out who he gave his money to. All his sisters and brothers are there and their children, and it doesn't go that well. Something quite shocking happens at the reading, and the whole family is really upset. But that's just the beginning of their troubles, because the very next day, one of Richard Abernathy's siblings, Cora, is found brutally murdered, and suddenly the family starts wondering whether this is not just the first murder, but the second. They start questioning the death of Richard Abernathy and wondering whether somebody killed him, and that same person has now killed Cora. Won't tell you any more after that, but it's an incredibly exciting setup. It's an incredibly clever book, and I really enjoyed it. I just watched the adaptation of it with David Suchet, and it made me remember how amazing this book is and how much I wanted to reread it. I think this is one that is a really good way in to Agatha Christie if you want to start reading her books. The first one I would say you should read is Murder on the Orient Express, but this is another good one to read afterwards. It's a real classic, and I hope you'll enjoy it. It is, I would say, for 12 plus, anyone who loves classic murder mysteries. So, that was my video for April, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back next month with more book recommendations and also with some news that I am very excited about sharing. It's something that I have wanted to talk about with you for a long time and I haven't been able to, but I think next month I'll finally be able to let you know what it is. So check back very soon to find out what my news will be, but until then, goodbye.